Gunfire echoes across ancient temple ruins as two modern armies face off in a conflict centuries in the making. In July 2025, Thailand and Cambodia erupted into their worst border clashes in over a decade. Today, we're diving into the fascinating web of history, power, and survival that connects these Southeast Asian neighbors, and how French colonialism changed everything. You're about to discover why these tensions run far deeper than just border disputes. And it's really incredible how this current conflict mirrors historical patterns that go back hundreds of years. We're seeing modern armies clash in literally the same places where their ancestors fought.
The search results show at least 12 Thai nationals were killed in these recent clashes. What exactly sparked this latest round of violence?
Well, according to reports, the fighting broke out around the Priya Vihar temple complex, this UNESCO heritage site that's been a flashpoint for centuries. The temple itself dates back to the 11th century, and both countries have long claimed it as their own.
Wait, so they're fighting over an ancient temple?
Well, it's about much more than just the temple. You see, this dispute has roots in the colonial era, when France and Britain were carving up Southeast Asia. The borders we see today were largely drawn during that period.
Speaking of colonial times, I found something fascinating in the research. Cambodia was actually caught between two powerful neighbors in the 1800s, Thailand, which was called Siam back then, and Vietnam, right?
Exactly. And this is where it gets really interesting. By the early 1800s, Cambodia had declined from its former glory as the Angkorian Empire. It was basically being pulled apart by both Siam and Vietnam.
That must have been a pretty desperate situation.
Oh, absolutely. And this is where King Norodom comes in. He inherited the throne in 1860, and he made this incredibly bold and, honestly, controversial decision.
What did he do?
In 1863, he reached out to France for protection. Now, this wasn't just some random choice, it was actually a pretty clever strategic move to preserve some form of Cambodian sovereignty.
But didn't that basically make Cambodia a French colony?
Well, technically it became a protectorate, not a colony. The initial agreement in 1863 was actually pretty limited. France would protect Cambodia from external threats, but Cambodia would keep its internal autonomy.
I'm guessing that didn't last long.
You're right. By 1884, the French had basically forced King Norodom to sign a new treaty, giving them much more control over taxes, customs, public works, everything.
And how did the Cambodian people feel about that?
They weren't happy at all. There was actually a major rebellion in 1885, led by Prince Sivota, who was the king's half-brother. But the French managed to suppress it.
You know what's fascinating? While all this was happening, Thailand, or Siam as it was called then, managed to stay independent.
Yeah, that's one of the most interesting aspects of this whole period. Siam was actually really clever about modernizing and playing the colonial powers against each other.
But they still lost some territory to the French, right?
Right. In 1904 and 1907, France basically forced Siam to give up claims to certain Cambodian provinces. This actually helped establish many of the borders we see today.
And those are the same borders people are fighting over now, aren't they?
Exactly. The current fighting is happening in what's called the Emerald Triangle. It's this disputed region between the two countries that includes the Preah Vihar temple complex.
It's kind of mind-blowing that these colonial-era decisions are still causing problems today.
And it gets even more complicated when you look at what happened after the colonial period. The whole region went through massive changes during the Vietnam War era.
How so?
Well, Thailand became this crucial ally for the United States, while Cambodia got pulled into the conflict and eventually fell to the Khmer Rouge. These events really shaped how these countries interact today.
Let's fast forward to today. What's at stake in these current clashes?
According to recent reports, the fighting has displaced over 300,000 civilians and is seriously affecting both countries' economies.
That's a huge number of people.
And it's having some unexpected consequences. For instance, there's been a mass exodus of Cambodian migrant workers from Thailand, which is creating labor shortages in Thai industries.
So this isn't just about borders anymore, is it?
Not at all. It's affecting everything from manufacturing to agriculture, and politically, it's causing real problems for Thailand's government.
How so?
Well, the Thai military appears to be using this crisis to reassert its influence, which is undermining the civilian government. It's creating this really tense political situation.
And what about Cambodia? How are they handling this?
Cambodia is actually going through some interesting changes. Prime Minister Hun Manet, who's relatively new in office, is trying to modernize the government while dealing with this crisis.
Wait, so both countries are dealing with internal political shifts while this is happening?
Exactly. And that's part of what makes this situation so volatile. You've got these historical tensions mixing with modern political dynamics.
Has there been any progress in resolving the conflict?
Well, there was a ceasefire agreement reached in Kuala Lumpur at the end of July, but tensions remain high. Both sides are still very wary of each other.
It's fascinating how this whole situation really shows how the past isn't really past, doesn't it?
Absolutely. These borders that were drawn by colonial powers, these temples built centuries ago, they're still shaping events today in ways that affect millions of people.
And it's not just about the borders themselves, is it?
No, it's about identity, sovereignty, politics, economics, all these layers that have built up over centuries of interaction between these nations.
What do you think needs to happen for this to be resolved?
Based on what we're seeing, there needs to be strong civilian leadership on both sides, willing to look beyond historical grievances and focus on mutual economic benefits.
But that's easier said than done, right?
Much easier. When you've got centuries of complex history and modern political pressures, it takes real courage to choose cooperation over conflict.
And meanwhile, the temple still stands there, watching it all unfold.
Yeah, that's what's so incredible about this. That temple has been there since the 11th century, watching empires rise and fall, colonies come and go.
And now it's watching tanks and soldiers instead of kings and colonists.
Exactly. The players change, but in many ways, the game remains the same. It's still about power, territory, and identity.
Do you think there's hope for a lasting solution?
There's always hope, but it's going to take real leadership and vision to move beyond these historical cycles of conflict.
And probably some willingness to let go of old grievances.
That's really the key. These countries need to find a way to honor their history without being trapped by it.
Speaking of being trapped by history, it's pretty ironic that we're seeing modern nations fight over borders drawn by colonial powers they both opposed.
That's one of the great paradoxes of post-colonial states. They often end up defending the very borders they once fought against,
It really makes you think about how complicated these situations are.
and how there are rarely simple solutions to problems that have been centuries in the making.
Well, this has been a fascinating exploration of how the past shapes the present. Any final thoughts?
Just that understanding this history is crucial for anyone trying to make sense of Southeast Asia today. These aren't just ancient conflicts, they're very much alive.
And sometimes, unfortunately, deadly.
Which is why it's so important that we learn from this history rather than just repeat it.
Well, that brings us to the end of today's episode of Remember, those ancient temples aren't just watching history anymore, they're watching us make it.